Emmanuel Manyasa. I am very familiar to many of you here in Kenya. So one of the gaps that we note, and which is actually why we came together, is the fact that in reporting for SDG4 globally, there has been a claim that there is lack of data from Africa. And so the African Union has adopted the Continental Common Assessment Framework for Africa late last year. And we are coming together as a region to build on that, to say how can we make data that is relevant for East Africa available, not just to our policymakers in our countries and in the region, but also to make it available for Africa and make it available for reporting for SDG 4.1 indicator. Yeah.
The challenges in the education sector, have you identified the challenges?
Challenges are many, but we can overcome them. One of those is that for a long time we had very different education systems in the region. So Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania had different education systems, and what that has meant is that while we move around the region freely, it has been hard for a child who moves from one country to another to get into the new education system in the country where they are going. For instance, for a long time when we had the 844 here, someone who went to Uganda and came back to Kenya with Form 4 was actually a school dropout because there was no equivalent of Form 4 of Uganda in Kenya. The Form 6 of Uganda is what was equivalent to our Form 4 because that is what you needed to go to college. And so that is being addressed now in the recent adoption of CBA across the region. And we think that that is an important step. But of course, there is still a lot of processes in full adoption and compliance and in making sure that now children can move across the region freely.
Takeaways from this meeting?
From this meeting, one key takeaway is that we are demonstrating here collaboration between countries. We are demonstrating collaboration between government and non-government actors because we have here with us and one of our colleagues from the government of Tanzania will speak to us shortly. We have here government officials from the three countries. We have here civil society organizations from the three countries. And this collaboration is something that we need to nurture and cherish. And that is, for us, the key thing. But also, we are trying to harmonize tools to make sure that we are able to measure what is happening in our schools so that we can be able to keep improving. Because you can only improve on something when you know what it is. You need a baseline to know what to build on. And that is what the workshop is trying to ensure we come up.
Funding has always emerged up. How serious is it?
Sorry?
The issue of underfunding,
Funding of education is a global challenge because, as for instance, civil society organizations are funded by donors. In the recent times, donor funding has diminished, and it's not just the civil society, even governments. We know USAID, for instance, was funding a lot of education programs in our countries. When USAID was pulled, then that challenge augmented. But then it is now a challenge for us to look for innovative ways. How do we make sure that, one, we look at our domestic philanthropists and make sure they are contributing more? How do we talk to communities to contribute more? For a long time, education has been assumed to be the responsibility of government and the parent. But we need to today to appreciate that the value of an educated person in society is to everyone. It's not just to the government and the parent. So how can we, all of us, even those without children in schools, contribute to funding education because it is still valuable to all of us? And those are some of the things we're thinking about.
Maybe do you have a percentage to related to that question about underfunding? Is it 50, 70, 80?
You know, I don't want to speak for those who hold the passes. I do not hold the pass, but I know that the challenge of funding education is great. The level to which we have not been able to attain what we need to achieve a fair education to every child is great. Maybe we need like double the resources we currently have, and that will help to reach the dream of every child getting a quality education, because that is our promise to these children. but that is not what we are delivering yet because of the gaps that we can observe, and yet it's a dream we must keep working towards. For the purposes of this workshop, I want to leave that out for one reason. We are developing tools to go and do that and determine. We want to restrict ourselves to speaking based on evidence. We will be glad early next year when we finished this cycle that we are starting to share an evidence-based statement on the status across our 3 countries. Promise of CBE was that we will give every child an opportunity to pursue the pathway of their best interest. But it was also supposed to be the pathway of their best ability, based on the evidence that will be generated from junior school. The challenge that we have had is in the implementation of junior school. So because we haven't done very well in junior school, at the point of transition, we were not ready to actually determine the pathway of the learner prior to placement. And so government had to do something at the end because children had to transition. My own thoughts are that this is going to be a temporary situation, that we will address the gaps in junior school so that by the time a child is in grade 9, the parent, the teacher, and the child have agreed on which pathway that child is supposed to go. That is how the junior school is designed. It's designed to explore the talent, the ability, the interest of the child, work among the parent, teachers, and the learners together to make sure that the learner is guided. Why does the learner need guidance? Because we were all at some point young people, and we all dreamed of doing things that were outside of our abilities. I know people who have chosen courses and said, I must do this one, but when they are tested, it shows actually their abilities lie elsewhere. And that's why that collaboration between the teacher, the parent, and the child is very critical at junior school. But we had gaps in junior school, and those gaps created the confusion we saw early this year in the transition to grade 10. My hope that is temporary.
My name is Richard Mabala. I come from Tanzania. As you can see from my shirt, it says Haki Elimu, the right to education, and I was one of the founder members and board chair. And our concern, one of our concerns obviously, is the quality of education, and in my case particularly with regard to life skills and values, as this is something I've been working on for nearly 30 years. And so it is very encouraging to me to find that Uwezo and Usawa are now realizing that together with literacy and numeracy, it is very important to include an evaluation of where our children are at in terms of life skills and values. Do they have the values? Are they developing the values which will make them useful and citizens who enjoy their lives and contribute to society? Or are they developing negative values? Do they have the life skills to be able to put those values into practice, like communication, problem solving, critical thinking, creative thinking, and so on? And so the inclusion of life skills and values into this foundational learning I find very important, and looking for ways of assessing this to be able to see from a system point of view, not from an individual, but from a system point of view, whether these life skills and values are actually being developed through our parenting and through our educational systems as well. So in my case, I'm working with a group of people developing items, developing scenarios and questions to be able to evaluate where our children are at in terms of life skills and values in our 3 countries, Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya.
From your discussions, maybe you can tell us, is there any harmonization between the 3 countries, or they are operating on different curriculums?
No, the aim, well, of course, each country has its own curriculum, but this morning we were actually analyzing the curricula up to standard 3, because that is the level at which we are evaluating. And the similarities between the 3 curricula are very great, and so we are concentrating on those similarities. and developing questions related to those similarities. There's not very much difference. We all have the same interest in our children. Yeah.
You talk about the issue of quality education in the region. Maybe you can talk about that, the issue of quality in the region of education. How are we doing at the moment?
I think the previous evaluation done by Uwezo show that we still have a long way to go. And one of the problems for me personally is that the goals, like sustainable development goals and so on, inevitably they look quite superficially. So one of the important things is access. So as long as you put all the children into a building which is baptized with the name school, and they sit in a room which is called classroom, then they have access to education. But actually access to education as education depends on the availability of teachers who know what they're doing, the availability of books, and so on, and even the language that is used. Because you can sit in a classroom, if you don't understand what on earth is going on, then you don't have any access to education. So I think these are all issues which are being discussed both at national level and at regional level. How do we move beyond children sitting in a classroom to quality education, which ensures that every child can develop their talents to the best of their ability to be able to become productive citizens who enjoy their lives, who live meaningful lives using the talents that they have and with the knowledge and skills that enables them to act well in their societies.
What are the emerging challenges facing this, to achieve this quality education? What are the emerging challenges emerging?
What are the challenges to quality education? Obviously infrastructure. We are all young nations and we have a young population. I don't know about Kenya and Uganda, but the average age of a Tanzanian is between 17 and 18. And so the vast majority of our population are young. So developing enough schools, providing enough books, training enough teachers, ensuring there's enough equipment for all the schools is an issue. It's a big issue. But the second one for me is language. When we say, for example, children have to study in a language which is not their mother tongue, and in areas where they don't have access to this language, which normally is English, we are depriving them of education. And for me, this is one of the biggest problems that there is, that why can't we, every other country in the world which was not ruled by the colonialists, they use their own language. Even very small countries, they teach in their own language, and then they teach English as a subject. And doing that, they have better English. But of course, there is a class, there is a group of people who have access to English, so they have less problems. And so there is growing inequality in our system between those who have access to that language and those who don't have access to that language. That has nothing to do with this meeting. This is, you asked me another question. But Uwezo is about testing where people are at in terms of literacy, numeracy, and life skills and values. And how do we do this in the most effective way so that our countries and our governments and our curriculum developers can develop better systems to ensure all our children develop these skills which are key to their development in life.
Maybe from this meeting, have you come up with the recommendations that you want looked at going to the future?
Uwezo can't cover everything. So, and because life skills and values are being introduced for the first time, then we are sticking to one value, which is respect, and one life skill, which is problem solving. But of course, there are many other life skills and many other values. But I think this is a very good start. This is the first time that life skills now are actually being brought to the level of assessment. Exams don't assess life skills, exams assess knowledge. So to me, this is a very good start, and once you have the foot in the door, I believe the door will get wider and wider.
My name is Baraka Mgwamwende, Executive Director for Uwezo Tanzania, but also in this workshop, I am representing the consortium, FLARA consortium, as a chair for the region. We are here today as a FLARA consortium. It is in its long form, we say Foundational Learning Assessment for Regional Agenda. And therefore, we decided as the consortium of 3 organizations, civil society organization, that is Uwezo Uganda, Usawa Agenda Kenya, and Uwezo Tanzania, to come together and harmonize the East African Foundational Learning Assessment tools, so that we can produce a regional report on foundational learning that is comparable across the three countries. And in this consortium, we aim that the data that we are going to produce, they will now inform policies across East Africa, and therefore steer the discussion around foundational learning, how we improve the foundational learning in the region.
Maybe from the deliberations, any similarities between the 3 countries in terms of education?
Yes, right now we are happy that all the 3 countries will operate under the competence-based curriculum, and therefore we are embracing a competence-based education. Therefore, that is one big achievement that we are banking on, and therefore, as we move forward, we think that it's very important that even the way the practices are shaped around improving foundational learning, they are harmonized.
Habari, naitwa Musa Swila, ni afisa na mratibu wa masuala ya elimu ya awali na kujifunza kusoma, kuandika na kuhesabu kutoka Wizara ya Elimu Tanzania. Tupo hapa kwa ajili ya kuhakikisha uendelezaji wa kile ambacho serikali imekipa kipaumbele, hususan katika ujifunzaji wa watoto wa issues zinazohusiana na kusoma, kuandika na kuhesabu. Na katika sehemu hii ni sehemu mojawapo muhimu ambao tumekuja kama ni sehemu ya kuunga mkono jitihada zinazoendeshwa na wadau wakiwemo Uwezo katika kusapoti utekelezaji wa kujifunza kusoma, kuandika na kuhesabu, na hususan katika uzalishaji wa zile takwimu ambazo zitaendana na ushahidi ambao utatoa fursa zaidi kwa watekelezaji nchini na hususan kwa nchi zote za Afrika Mashariki. Na hii ni sehemu mojawapo ya kuonesha kwamba kama serikali tunatambua kabisa kwamba kuna haja ya kufanya kazi kwa pamoja kati ya serikali na wadau mbalimbali, kama ni sehemu mojawapo ya kuhakikisha kwamba tunakidhi vigezo vya kikanda na kimataifa katika kuondoa changamoto ya ujifunzaji duni.
Farida Nasereka, I work with Uwezo Uganda, one of the members of the FLARA consortium. And for the work we are doing together in collaboration, the most important issue we are looking at is that issues of foundational learning are really similar across board. All our children are not learning. And even if we have country reports or data that we generate at country level, it speaks the same. So under this collaboration, we are united to be able to speak one voice within the region, so that we produce data that actually amplifies the issues that are still lacking in our countries in relation to children's acquisition of foundational literacy, but also one of the important or critical issues is in relation to life skills and values, which we also know is very important. All of us have actually started implementing the competency-based curriculum, but there are still gaps as well. We need to get data on what is it that the children are proficient at in many of the values or skills like problem solving, values like respect, so that at the end of the day we are informing our governments on what is working and what is not working. Where do we still need to tighten and make things better? So as a consortium, we are really excited that we are doing this work together to be able to inform policy, to be able to produce data that can be referenced and inform how we make improvements within our region. Definitely it is as well. The government, in as much as the education budget almost receives a significant amount of money, lots of investments, but it's still, just as elsewhere, it is still not enough. And so even when it's not enough, we need to see that whatever is being given translates into outcomes that are really showing that our children are somewhere.